God. Listen,
I'm Steve Young. You're watching the Letterman Podcast.
I was getting, I had a bad...
Welcome once again to the Letterman Podcast. Today is a very fun episode, and I really love this beautiful long form conversation, relaxed but also just so heartfelt and fun. Our guest today is Zoran Zgonc, and Zoran is just he's an executive in the television world now. But he started his television career, in the business, as they like to say, as a researcher for Late Show, and it's so cool. All these episodes are just so precious to me because they are unique. And this one here, I think that we have had a tone many times that we've set with first time guests, where we kind of go through, okay, well, what got you into the business and all that, and then it's sort of a progression. Like it's kind of like a timeline progression. This episode is not like that. Well, we did go into his background and how he started. We talked about one of the segments he was on. We talk about that early on. But then we just kind of go into the philosophy of different things in Letterman, in the Letterman world, of course, and people that he worked with and whatnot, but in television in general and in comedy, the stories that he tells. At the end of the episode, he goes into the people that were in Worldwide Pants that have affected him to this day, as an executive in television, doing very successful in what he does now. He talks about some of the people that meant so much to him in the pants world, and he forgets people, to the point, at the end, after we stopped recording, we were chit-chatting for a little while, and he said, I forgot to talk about Pat Farmer. Pat Farmer is one of my favorite people, and Lee Ellenberg. Oh my gosh, we didn't talk about Lee. And that is exactly why we do this show. It's to give the folks who were part of the greatest body of broadcast work in history, that of David Letterman and company. It gives the company an avenue to talk about how grateful they are for what they went through and what they were a part of. And if this show has any, through lines of themes that have grown since we've started it, that is certainly it. You talk about the gratefulness that these people feel for this time in their lives. The Emmy story that he tells at the beginning of this episode, when he went to the Emmys, in the late 90s. And he really does a good job of showing us what it was like to be there and to be a part of it. And I think there's something communal in that. I think we all have these experiences, kind of before our serious lives took off, where our friends, our family were our friends. And it certainly was that for him. And he just shares a lot of great stories about his time working for Late Show with David Letterman. A lot of heart in this episode and a lot of just real thoughtfulness. Zoran's a really thoughtful guy, and I just appreciate this episode very, very much. We have one sponsor at the Letterman Podcast. That's hello-deli.com. Go to hello-deli.com if you want Late Show with David Letterman merchandise. Rupert G is the G of hello-deli.com. Without further ado, so happy to present this episode of the Letterman Podcast featuring Zoran Zgonc. Zoran, thank you so much for taking time to be on this thing today. I know you're in DC now. You've been in DC for a while. Do you miss Manhattan?
Yes, I do. I mean, DC is it's arguably more international than New York City.
Sure.
Which is saying a lot.
Yeah.
But also just, I was in Midtown, and then my wife and I, for good over a decade, we were in the meatpacking district. We watched as that thing went from like a place where you went to shoot like the worst scenes in American Psycho.
Yep.
To it's like an adult playground now.
Yep.
With a High Line and it's just fantastic. So the city, and I know this is we're not going down political roads, but when people talk about the cities and all the crime and this, it's like, listen, people are getting priced out.
Yeah.
Of cities. We want to stay there. We can't.
Yeah.
Companies can't even do that. So they've got a whole extra layer of being like, hey, all right, come on back. We'll make it a little more cost effective.
Yep.
They can pull that cord anytime they want, especially in New York. And I just was looking this morning at something where they're building out a bikeway within the Times Square area that it's just like you think about a Times Square and a bike area. Come on, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, like, and so much of that, and I'm not forcing this segue, but maybe perhaps I am, is having the Late Show and having everything there in
Yep.
Times Square and watching in my time period as that went from the butt of Dave's jokes, the primary butt of his like monologue jokes,
Yep.
to like, hey, you can't make fun of it as much anymore. It's not. I mean, you still could, and
Sure. Well, at least we sell the Times Square Elmos. At least we have
yes,
those.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, until PBS comes cracking down on the, um,
Copyright infringement.
IP. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think we're fine, but
Well, they better be careful. I hear those Elmos are packing. I'm super curious about your whole story, and I mean, we're gonna get to how you got to. I assume you didn't grow up in New York, and I'm curious as to how you got there. But I do have one question before we start. Can you still do the Ukrainian crouch? Can you still? And
I love that you do your homework. This is now I'm like going back to like, is there anything I don't want to talk about? No. Oh, no. That I definitely would love to talk about because that is a very much a part of my story and always will be. Yes.
Okay, so we'll
Oh,
bring
no,
everybody
no,
in
the
right
answer is
now.
no. The answer is no, I
The answer is,
cannot anymore. Not even close. I can't bend down to pick up a pencil without having something being like, I got to see the chiropractor today, kind of thing, let alone.
it was extremely impressive, and I just wow, like rewatching it again, it's like, oh, humans can do some very interesting things that I can't do. We're talking about a segment called "Everything Is Better When It Hurts," and that you were in. It's I don't know about famously, but perhaps semi-famously, Will Forte did his favorite, staff favorite moments for the Letterman channel, talking about his short stint as a writer on Late Show, and in that segment, Will Forte is there cutting his own hair, but before that, Zoran is there doing a very impressive dance where he's down and then his foot is up way over his head and back down and then up and down, that kind of that Russian rah rah Rasputin Boney M kind of a thing. And it's extremely impressive. uh is that something that you just learned? It like, when did you learn
No,
that?
no,
How did you
no.
learn that move?
So here's boy, this is we're going deep in the woods here early on.
Outstanding.
I'm fine with. So I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
My mother is from Serbia. My dad is Slovenian from there. We talked once about like you and I about like some items which I could share with you, and I have something. My dad's. My dad was a very accomplished accordion player and eventually became part of the Polka Hall of Fame in Ohio. Check it out. Especially it's a great mix up with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then about a half hour's drive down, you go to I think Euclid, Ohio,
Yeah.
and that's where the Polka Hall of Fame is. Um,
I'm sure there's a tribute to Weird Al there.
Oh, Weird Al is actually related to Frankie Yankovic, who literally is the polka king of
Exactly.
Rust Belt. So yes, so Weird Al was like he was a proud son of all of my dad's friends and stuff like that. So, but yeah, and then my mother was very much involved in she did an ethnic radio show on the weekends in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Sounds of Yugoslavia, and she did that from the time that I could remember, have any memories. I would go on Sundays. My dad would actually do the commercials with his American accent because my mother would butcher them in English. And I
Oh,
was
that's precious.
yeah, yeah.
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday,
Oh,
30 some years she did that program. And so I was raised amongst so much of that. And I'll explain a little bit later how my mom sort of, but I eventually got into TV certainly with that background and having that impression early on, like, hey, you can do this stuff. This
Yeah.
is
Oh.
this is achievable. My brother, actually, my older brother, is a successful sports writer in Pittsburgh, and so much of that is, again, my mother's influence of just sort of being like, hey, anybody, we can do this. And this is I mean, beyond pre-podcast,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Obviously, yeah, for sure. You're in the
Um,
radio business, but as a kid, you're in around the studio. You're seeing people that are
oh,
like you say, like close to you, showing you that you can do this. That is a major, major leveling up for a young one,
yeah.
especially if you have fascination. Did you have fascination for it immediately?
Oh, I mean, it. I was well. Okay, so now the how does that tie into the Letterman stuff of it all is
Yeah.
interesting, and I will that does tie into the dancing too. But as a kid, my mother was a unique um, style of raising your children. My mother used to love to wake me up and say, "Hey, there's a great Cary Grant movie on. Come downstairs with me." Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And she'd be like, "Hey, come downstairs. This is a fantastic movie. Gregory Peck, you love it." And I'd be like, "Okay." And but then also we kind of like she was a total night owl and my dad was the opposite. And eventually I would start watching Carson with her. And then eventually I start watching. I've been like trying to like, hey, can we just watch this David Letterman a little bit? And then she's like, yeah, of course, I don't care. And I say this without any exaggeration, without my mother doing what moms aren't necessarily supposed to do.
Yeah.
Had that not happened, me getting the researcher job at Letterman might not have happened because this is way pre YouTube. I'm not watching these old clips. I
Yeah.
just know them from having seen this stuff as it was happening. My earliest memories of some of those appearances, I remember vividly the first time watching Dave. He had, and I'm sorry I don't remember this, and you might know, it's like it was somebody like a James Brown or maybe
Hmm.
somebody from like P Funk or something, and
Hmm.
they'd come on and they were doing like they were motioning the band to like hit the notes,
Yeah.
dun, 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 like this. And then I remember Dave's monologue the next night was like, he's like, "How come I can't get that, Paul? How come nobody's doing it for me?"
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, Dave," and then that started, and then it was like the joke of the week.
Yep.
And up until his retirement, those little jabs and things, that was always, and so it was like having those memories and having that. And obviously, there's another one I was trying to remember, is like, um, the funniest thing still to this day is one of the top funniest jokes ever for me, and which just left such an impression, was the lamps, shades, field package.
Absolutely.
I
Yep.
mean, when that cut to when he says, "Well, I guess you'd have to go to a place where they just sell shades, or called Just Shades," and then
Just bulbs and just shades. Yep.
I mean, and so I watched Carson all those years in that showbiz style, and that sort of like everything's slick, even
Hmm.
though Johnny was being more than just what the Rat Pack would do. He was
Sure.
being slick. He would stumble. He'd do whatever. To Dave's like, you know, out of control Spanish game show. Um, but the most amazing thing is that that's what also made the show so damn hard to produce, because you're actually trying to produce it to achieve it. But his whole thing is to kind of chisel away from that and make it like, where can I take my jabs and make this go out of control? So
Yep.
anyway, so again, I knew I was going to go way too far in the woods on
Nope.
that.
Not at all.
Point
This
is
is
that
what we
I
do.
also,
This is what we do, Soren.
oh good, okay, yeah. So also with that, I then at that same time growing up with so much like ethnicity stuff going on in here, let me just share with you real quick while we're talking about this,
Yes.
like office area.
Yes.
This is
Oh. Oh.
yeah, yeah, Polka Fever. My dad
Oh.
was one of the original carriers of the Polka Fever. That's from his. That's from his accordion. So Zgonc there, and that's right next
Oh,
to the coveted,
oh, there it is.
yeah, Letterman pencil. And then this is a picture of me and my buddy Rohit at the I want to say the 97 or 98 Emmys.
And that was
Um,
for Letterman.
that was for Letterman, yes.
Oh man.
And oh my God, we got to go back to that story because
Oh,
that's there
absolutely.
too.
We're just getting
Um,
started, my friend.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So so in Pittsburgh, I grew up in the very ethnic community, and in that ethnic community, um, we had like music and dance ensembles.
Mhm.
Eventually, um, you could get a college performance scholarship for a group that is still exists to this day called the Tamburitzans. Very proud to be a member of that group. I had a full scholarship at the time. That's not the case anymore with them, unfortunately. But we traveled, did 80, 90 shows a year all across the United States. I know you're like, what is he
No,
talking about?
it's like a fraternity a group that had a legacy and all that.
That's
Uh
right.
Kind of like, Menudo. No, not Menudo. It'd be no, but no, the Whiffin Poops I think is one. Yeah, I know
River
exactly.
dance. It's
Yeah,
like a
yeah, of
river
course.
dancey kind of thing, and it's musicians and
Yeah.
dancers, male and female. We got on a bus. We every weekend we'd be going off to some place like that. If you guys get a chance, the Tamburitzans, Tamburitzans. They are phenomenal group. They do all that Ukrainian dancing stuff I used to be able to do and all that stuff. And so I did that. And so my buddy Doug Mitchell,
Hmm.
who was a writer on the show at the time of that skit, he came up with that skit and he asked me if I wanted to do that because he knew that I had that background and I'd actually taken him to see the show and other stuff like that. And and honestly, I was like, no, I don't want to do it because I didn't want Dave or anyone to make fun of it because I
Right.
was just, look, come on, I'm not gonna have my friends, my Pittsburgh friends or whatever,
Yep.
and I don't want it to be. And they convinced me that he wasn't going to do that, and I'm so glad he didn't. He convinced me because it's such a great thing to have, and
Oh
it is
yeah.
so funny that it comes. I, so my mom, anytime I had appearances on the show, she would record them on VHS,
Hmm.
and I eventually got some of them transferred when the show when Dave wrapped and retired and stuff. I was like, I got to put a couple of these online. So that's when I found that. And the funny thing is it rolls right into Will Forte's thing on the clip, and it's just fun because it's like, it's like, yeah, we had very parallel careers, Will and I. That, that moment, but but the thing is like I will say that I was buddies with Will at the
Yep.
time
Yep.
when he was at Letterman. We actually we were both very single at the time. We were
Hmm.
kids,
Hmm.
and we like would go to like McGee's and hang out and
Yep.
flirt with girls and whatever. And then well, again, I'm bouncing all over the place. But then
It's
I'm at
okay.
the Letterman retirement uh, farewell party that
Yep.
Jay Johnson brilliantly put together at the
Yep.
my gosh, help me out with
Is it the Friars Club or MoMA? One of
The
the
Friars
was
Club.
it the Friars Club one? Yeah.
Oh my God. And I
Yep.
didn't, and I was such a like, oh my, this is my first time shockingly at the Friars Club too.
Yep.
That was such an amazing to the point where we're in one room and I'm looking around and I'm saying to people, hey, this is wild. There's so many pictures of Billy Crystal. And they're like, yeah, this is the Billy Crystal room, idiot. Um, but it was, it's that kind of vibe and everything. So anyway, I'm like hanging out with somebody. I come back down the stairs and I had no idea Will was going to be there.
Oh
And
man, that's
Will
cool.
just goes, "Hey, Zoran, come here. Like, we're going to take a picture with some friends that we had uh, that we had taken this picture back in the day when we all went to the Emmys." Oh my God, I got to find that.
Yeah, man,
Uh,
that's really, really, really cool.
Yeah,
Holy cow. Talk about the
but
circle is now complete moment. Like
oh,
and you've got a bunch of those that are happening.
but he's just a guy who he's just such a good dude. Like it didn't even dawn on him that I'd be like, Will, I didn't know that you still remembered me or gave a damn. Um, but it was great, and he was always such a nice dude. Um, and could not be more like happy for his success over the years. So well earned, and I
Well,
don't know, man.
it's funny as you're finding the picture of Will.
Yeah,
It's so interesting. We've had so many writers on the show and talking about being able to get that exact voice and how many talented people have kind of come in. And I mean, it's so rare to get a guy like a Steve Young or someone like that who,
yeah.
could really, really, really embrace the culture, put it in the head, and then write just in the voice of that culture. Will Forte, obviously extremely talented writer. Like, I mean, we're talking prolific in the scale of his talent. But yet, only lasted a couple of cycles, and it just wasn't the
Well,
right alchemy. But then you throw him on Saturday Night Live, which you think would be a similar alchemy, but it just clicked perfectly for him, and
yeah,
it's
and
so interesting how that would happen with some people.
we've talked about that in the past. My friends and I we talked about that with Will
Mm-hmm.
because he was so super talented. But then the things that I've read about him at SNL was that he was, I mean, and you look at the body of work that he did there,
Mm-hmm.
that he was pretty out there for them.
Yeah.
He was edgy and weird, and he
Yep.
still masters those characters. Um, what's the one I think you should leave
Oh
show?
yeah, I think you should leave with
Yeah,
Tim
but
Robinson.
Tim Robinson. And the
Yeah.
season one, the one where he's playing the guy who, oh my God, that is one of the funniest skits. But and you can't, I don't know how many people in the world can actually pull Will's character off.
Well, that's just it. He's Will. Yeah, he just, and it's so funny because it can be in a different context. You get these performers where they can completely transform themselves, or they can just take a version of themselves and put themselves into a different context. Will Forte, there's no alternative to Will Forte. He is unique. And that's one of the things that I love about him. You talk about Tim Robinson, and I think you should leave. I just about 2 months ago now, I guess, saw Dave interview Tim Robinson at the Netflix is a Joke Comedy Festival in
Oh,
LA.
wow.
Yeah, and they didn't record it, and I'm baffled that they didn't record. There's 3 nights. Dave interviewed Nate Bargatze, Sarah Silverman, and then Tim Robinson, all on stage, and it was the third show was the Tim Robinson one, and boy, was it interesting.
Oh, I would imagine. Hold on one second.
Yeah, no problem at all. No
Speaking of
worries.
game shows, my dog just walked in and
Yeah. No, dogs give us 15 extra listeners. I don't know what that means. But no, dog, the dogs pull well, even on an
yeah,
audio or video podcast. This is the YouTube version. We'll see the dog. The audio one, we assure you. Um,
it
Zoran's
is a
dog
dog.
did come into frame briefly. We found the
You're
picture.
yeah. So
All right.
there's
That is, I
obviously
think we
you
just found the thumbnail for this episode. That is,
uh
oh, that is cool. Like, that
yeah,
is really,
so
really cool.
I'm the tall one. Will, I would imagine we all know. And
Will's the
then
Will
it's
one.
the
Yeah.
same Rohit guy from before who I will mention. And then Dina Rizzo Riley is a good friend who I think was the um she was the reason that we all got together for that picture. And Dina was a receptionist. Uh and we were kind of the funny stragglers at the Emmys who there are people who were the Letterman lifers.
Yep.
A lot of them were a little bit jaded by that. The rest of us were
Yep.
just like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Yes.
And I remember the funny thing about that in that picture with Rohit was he and I we walked the red carpet and we were like walking the red carpet like Ro was the assistant audience coordinator, and
Yep.
I was like the junior researcher punk kid who just got that gig.
Yep.
And I'm walking down, and I'm wearing a rented tux from like some dude in the garment district who, is just like, yeah, don't worry, I give you half price, whatever. And I'm like, and I'm wearing this thing, and Rohit, his tux was rented, and at one point he's like, I look like a magician, and I was like, yeah, you do kind of. So we're walking down the red carpet, and just like could not be more like, oh my God. And then we stop, and we finally get to the spot, and then we look at each other and we go like, let's go do it again. So we turn around and we go do it again. And this time we're like, yeah, what's up? And the guys who were taking the pictures are like, come on, get lost, kid. Beat it. And then we get up to the end, and there are the phenomenal Letterman lifer type folks like Kathy Mavrakakis,
Yeah.
Jill, Jill's on lifer, but Jill's, oh my God,
No, oh no, Jill. Yeah, absolutely.
one of the best people on the planet.
Yeah.
And they were all like, we've been watching you guys. You two are ridiculous. And we were like, oh no, are we gonna get in trouble? Like, it's so childish.
Oh yeah.
But it was wonderful. And then as the Emmys ended, I mean, we were in the nosebleed seats.
Yep.
Who cares?
Yep. Who cares?
It didn't matter. We were at the friggin' Emmys. But just to timestamp that for you,
yep.
We leave. Somebody had told us, they were like, hey, if you get out just a little bit before, you can stand. These are tips for you if you ever go to an award show, particularly in the 90s. If you go,
yeah, absolutely.
Time machine. I don't know that you can do these things now, but we go stand by the limos.
Mm-hmm.
The big celebs get out first.
Yep.
So we are standing by there, and then they all start coming out. And I'm telling you, it's like you're those Night of 100 Stars on CBS. It was like that, but it was all the different. So it was like
literally, a cavalcade of television royalty is assaulting you, is coming at you. Yeah,
it's like the cast of Seinfeld.
Yep.
Larry Sanders was at the time was a big one, and
yeah.
So it was Gary Shandling, it was all those different folks. But anyway, it was just such a fun, and it's just so funny because Swingers had just come out at the time.
Jon Favreau, Swingers.
Yeah.
It's
so ancient, but like,
but that is our comfort food. That is literally our generation's comfort food right there. Is what you're painting a picture of literally what we look back at our nostalgic days, like our dads would look back at, maybe waxing the car in the 50s or whatever. You're talking about our comfort food right here.
So money, and you don't even know it. You're so money. Ro and I would be saying that to each other. My friend Lee, we talk about Lee later for sure. We would just constantly be saying things of that, like quoting Vince Vaughn back to each other at the bars or whatever. And so we had a couple extra days, and we had to go to the Derby Club, man. Gotta go where it all comes from. So we get in a cab, and we're going, and neither one of us we take cabs in New York. Those are 10-minute drives. That's whatever, $15, like if you're really like splurging. We get in this cab, and we've got our jobs, we got no money, and the things just keeps ticking up and ticking up. It was like an $80 cab ride to the Derby, because you don't take cabs in LA.
Everyone's got a car. Yep.
So that was then that was like literally like a Swingers moment, of like, you think you're cool, you're not. And this is, oh my God, well, I'm really name dropping here. I might have, we're going for it here, but like so off the beaten path a little bit, but this is my all-time favorite celebrity moment, and it is kind of derivative of Letterman, but we went there with a bunch of Letterman crew. Eventually, those folks, they rented a car. They weren't idiots. So we all get there, and I go over to the bar. I'm wearing my like Vince Vaughn Swingers, shirt and stuff, and thinking I'm cool. And this they got the Daddy-O swing music playing. I don't know forget who it was. It wasn't Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, but it was somebody who was on that swinger
Yeah.
soundtrack, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not making this story up, but I'm standing there and again, remember this is like 98.
Yep.
This guy next to me goes, "Oh man, this band is really good, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool." And I look, and it's Robert Downey Jr.
Shut up.
I know this sounds like a
No, it's
BS
perfect.
thing,
Yeah. No, no, no.
but also I remember the time Robert Downey Jr. was not well
No.
at the time.
No.
And God bless him, everything he has done. I'm so like,
Yeah.
and we just start talking about the music because I'm like, was into it and I just figured this is cool. So then I go back to the table, and very rarely do you get these moments in life, but I did get this moment where I sat back at the table and I told everybody I was just talking to Robert Downey Jr. at the bar. And they were like, "Shut up, man. You're making that up. There's no way." Without fail, he walks by and he goes, "See, I told you, aren't they really good?" Or whatever, something like that to me. And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And then they all look back at me and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, screw you." They'll have to like mosaic out my middle fingers to everybody. But that's basically what happened. And it was that I got my Vince Vaughn mojo back. I was money at that point. But but that is like my ultimate name dropping. I won't go beyond that one.
Oh, no, 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 no. Please do. Please do. And also you're on brand because we've now talked about two SNL alumni. And it's interesting because okay, Will Forte's alumni with Late Show, not necessarily the longest. Robert Downey Jr.'s with Saturday Night Live, not necessarily the longest either. Yet both have gone on to be these giants in their field and whatnot. And it's interesting. And by the way, no pre-interview, folks. These themes just build themselves, as does the organic magic that is the Letterman podcast.
Right.
No, this is amazing. And how old? Like how old are you at this point? You're 30,
I'm
not
like
even
20,
30.
no. I'm like 25 or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
This
yeah,
was
yeah,
all
yeah.
this
That
was
is
all happening. I'm thinking to myself, I'll be going to the Emmys every year for the rest of my life. That is not happening. But I will say, but regardless of that,
yeah,
it was an amazing time period to be involved in that show. There's any time period was an amazing time to be part of that program, to be associated, to have the opportunity to work with your childhood hero, who he
yes,
absolutely was. Um, I would say, like, oddly enough, like the people who really taught me, when you grow up with like kind of an ethnic background and everything like that, and as the son of people, those you turn to television to kind of become what's your culture? How do you
yes.
see it? And my dad introduced me to like Abbott and Costello, but my mother introduced me to Tozovac and Zvonko Bogdan, and those are people you have to look up. But
Yeah, I haven't done that much research, but
that's a lot.
I
That's a
failed
lot.
the test. You were testing me, and I
Yeah.
failed that one.
Yeah. I wouldn't expect James Lipton to pull that one out. So you're fine. But at the same time, like that's where I was finding stuff like learning how to talk, like watching Dave.
Yep, me
And
too. Yep, absolutely.
right.
Because
I
he's a
mean,
broadcaster first, and I just find it interesting that you had this radio infusion early on in life. Well, that's Dave's roots is broadcasting, and it's funny, Zoran, like there are so many, and it's funny, mom and Carson, you're the first one. It's for most other people I've had on the show, it's dad and Carson. Dad introduced the
right.
Carson, but yours is mom. So lots of things here that are showing the building of the foundation of what it took. And again, I cannot tell you, really, I can tell you this, and you probably completely understand it. The audience, the theme of people who have been on this show, who worked for either production, for late night or late show, whether or not it was, a summer internship, all the way up to folks who lasted, the whole time. there are so many people that say this was the greatest time of my life, and they'll break out stories. Even a guy like John Beckerman, who has a beautiful career in TV
Yeah.
since. And has worked on projects as well. He had a moment like that too, where he was talking about how everyone was down in LA for I think it was for the Emmys, actually, when I think about it. And he's in a shopping cart, and someone, I think it might have been even Jill, was pushing him in a shopping cart, and he almost got thrown into traffic. And these are the memories that he, like, these great moments that you're talking about here. You're part of a very unique fraternity, and you
Well,
all seem to have memories that are just like this one. Maybe not swingers at the Derby Club with Robert Downey
yeah,
Jr.,
yeah,
but
yeah.
they're all unique in their own right. And it just goes to show the culture, the interesting culture that was built within your fraternity was really, really cool.
It's so true, and I think that what I think is that the show, it was a type of that the way that show worked. Obviously, I'm telling you something you know, but just for the sake of the conversation,
Yeah.
it's you were walking this tightrope of like things needed to collapse. It's like I at to that point, I mean, how many years I've been in television and had a little small stint working for a film producer and stuff. But the goal was never to let anything collapse, make sure
Mm.
everything worked to the achieved goal that we started with. But there you started with this goal, and it was like, well, let's see how we can unravel this.
Yes.
And that was where the comedy and where the humor came from. And so it was that weird mix of that with these people the folks who were just, who'd been with him forever, who knew that. And it was almost like, like being in the trenches with these veterans of this type of TV who would just be like, yeah, this is how it works, kid. You'll be all right. Like, don't have a nervous breakdown. He's supposed to make fun of what you just spent all the time doing. He's supposed to mock it or ignore it or do whatever. I mean, I can remember moments where you had um, actually, the best example of anything as a researcher that I had done in
Yeah.
preparation for things
Yep.
was the Farrah Fawcett interview.
You were the researcher on that.
I was the researcher on. I was not the reason for it.
No,
Just because I was the researcher doesn't mean
no,
she.
but
No, she.
you're setting volleyballs. You're setting volleyballs, and the job, and maybe he's gonna get up and spike those ones. Maybe
Yeah.
he's just gonna set it back. Maybe he's gonna bump it, whatever. But you're setting volleyballs for him to potentially spike. Very interesting that you were the researcher on the Farrah Fawcett interview.
Yeah. So, and to that point, that volleyball metaphor, like I watch talk shows now.
Yep.
I could tell you as I'm watching it, you know, oh, they had that preset, and more guys use it and that others don't. Some
Mm-hmm.
will go to the lengths of which the movie company is asking you or the toy maker is
Yeah,
asking you to
because the
do.
publicist is now involved now in a big way as well. It's not
Oh,
just the sake of the conversation; it's the sake of the strategy of the conversation as well. That is a part of a
yeah.
consideration for sure.
And it was there back then. And actually, that's what made Rosie O'Donnell this sort of, she almost became the opposite of Dave. Like Dave was the opposite of Carson. She was the embracer, the super fan.
The
Like,
shill almost.
yeah,
The
like
Yep.
Fallon is now, he's a super fan.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll be like, oh, look at this, I mean, remember Glenn Close was on for like 101 Dalmatians or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this like, they have a dog peeing like a little stuffed Dalmatian toy. And like Fallon would have brought that out and just giggled and I mean, whatever. It's so hilarious. And like Letterman was like on a kick about astronomy at the time and just started asking Glenn Close about astronomy. And she was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And the audience was totally weirded out. And I just the buckets of flop sweat. And then as I'm watching this backstage, being like, oh my God, I'm gonna get yelled at for this. Because he wasn't gonna do that. And then so the Farrah Fawcett thing, she had just done this Playboy video about body painting.
Yep.
So at least there was something there that Dave could kind of like latch onto a little bit, but still not necessarily
Yep.
his style. Great.
No, no, no. This is good. This is
The
good. The
dog.
dog is back, and we are excited.
It's
This is
right.
good.
Real. All right.
If
You
you need to
have
move them, no, no, absolutely. I'm leaving this in. This
all
stays
right,
in.
yeah.
The glitch goes out. This stays in.
Yeah. So no, so the body painting thing, whatever, it I'm just thinking before the show, like, I don't know, maybe he'll go with this. We had other stuff. We had Charlie's Angels moments. It had been a while since I think she was on late night before that. So
Mm-hmm.
she had never been on the CBS show.
Mm-hmm.
And so um she ends up like showing up like a half hour late, maybe more than that. And everybody's just like, we don't know. I'm with the talent bookers and the great Joanna Jordan, who
Yeah. Oh, I adore her. I adore her.
yeah. I worked with her later and to help her like kind of start her company, and now she is just a juggernaut.
Ah, she's a powerhouse. Yeah.
It's the mainstay of the business. But so we're all just like trying to figure out where is she, what's going on,
Yep.
and she shows up, and it was clear to everyone that she was just completely wasted, and they were like, we need to go on because what are we gonna do? And the publicist was kind of like, all right, just let her go, and because she was saying she was fine, so she goes on, and I'd never seen anything like it. I still haven't
Nope.
to this day where her head was at, what was going on, and I know that he was trying to help her bring her back, but some of those things that I had prepped, how do you throw to a Charlie's Angels clip while somebody is just in complete train wreck mode?
Yep.
You can't save the person. But they had a show to do,
Yep.
and you know, and obviously everything was, which I love, and I don't know to the extent. I think that those shows, the late night shows these days, still try to do everything in real time.
Yeah, it's not like it was at Late Show. You know what? I shouldn't say that. I just went and saw Kimmel not too long ago. The same trip actually that I think about. And hey, Joanna, I love you. I appreciate you. Joanna got me, into the VIP treatment at Kimmel. I appreciate that very, very, very much. And Kimmel does try and run it the way that you guys did. And we've talked about this on the show many times, how it was like a live show. The band looked at it as the commercial breaks were, no, we're playing all the way through. You go see Fallon these days, the Roots, they throw to a commercial, they play 8 bars or 10 bars of a song, then there's silence, and then, okay, we're coming back, and then they play another 20 bars of another different song, another part of the same song coming in,
Oh
whereas
gosh,
Paul and the band would play the whole time, right? Like it would be,
yeah,
and so yes, the pace that what you're talking about was like a live pace, right?
yeah. Oh my
Okay.
God,
Yeah.
I can still. I hear two songs. It's oh gosh, there were two warm up songs before the show.
Dance to the music.
Yeah,
Yep.
and the Stones.
Oh yeah. Oh man, they're gonna kill Don Giller's gonna kill both of us right now for not just
God,
pulling this out of our. The dance to the music is great to me because Eddie
yes,
Brill used to be the guy that would do the bass part. He would come in and do the bass part, and
yeah,
I love that. That's precious to me as well. But yeah,
yeah. Eddie was had just got the job, I think, as I was kind of exiting,
yeah,
and they had other people kind of bouncing around a little bit, but they kind of landed on Eddie, which was wonderful. But uh oh my God, it's gonna kill me. But I can hear it in my head. But nonetheless,
yeah.
I still hear those songs. I'll be in the supermarket and I hear it, and my heart starts kind of beating a little bit. Like I'm
I was gonna ask if you still dream about it. I was gonna ask if there are still these moments that trigger.
well, well. So I want to say though, I realized after a certain period of time that despite the fact that the people there were wonderful, despite the fact that I was able to work for my childhood hero and stuff like that,
Mhm.
that could not, I just was not necessarily built for that type of program.
Yep.
And I'd also was brand new. I'd never done anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And in TV, I mean, I literally went from like my job prior to being a CBS page and a Letterman was working at Wendy's when I was 16. So
Wow.
it wasn't like I had something, where I was like, well, somebody, a mentor being like, well, TV is built to various different things. Or although we did have that as at the page program.
Yes.
And so and I don't, how much have you ever really gotten into the CBS page program?
I've the CBS page program not nearly as much because well, I mean, don't get me wrong, we had Amy Sharon on here
Oh,
and she talked a lot about it, of course, and
yeah.
so yeah, we've
Well,
gotten into it a little bit. We've gotten into it a little bit,
Amy,
but then you guys started running your own interns and things like that, and the
yeah,
internals,
yeah.
like the audience coordinators and all that sort of stuff. You guys did a lot of that stuff. That's the unique thing about this is that Worldwide Pants did so many of the things that the network would have had programs for
Yeah.
already, except this is a Worldwide Pants production. So a lot of it you did on your own. And then there were liaisons where the two would link up, and the page program is one of the places where that would happen. So
That's correct.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And so that was my entry into the show. And that's where there was basically two ways at that time to get into the Late Show
yeah,
was either through an internship or as a page.
yeah. Janice,
Or,
was Janice in charge of
oh
of
yeah.
that for you? Okay, so she was okay. She
Uh,
was instrumental in that. For you,
Janice,
for the
Janice,
interns, she certainly was.
Janice was
Pages,
the audience.
sometimes.
She was the audience coordinator, and then she hired my good friend Sean Gottlieb, who still one of my best buddies and who's
Hmm.
helped my career immensely over the years. And Sean was the audience coordinator. Then I got to work with him as assistant audience coordinator. But prior to that, we were all pages at CBS, and I mean, still when we're all out having, we're still all very good friends. It's crazy. It's like
I
your
love
first
that.
group of friends becomes your long, like we're family at this point.
Yep.
And so we all kind of grew up in the ranks together, and we were very similar in that. And anytime we still get together now, we're just like, man, this could still be a TV show, like us talking about our page days.
Hmm.
I mean, what the name we used, the funny pages. Like, and by the way, the funny pages is that now sounds as dated because there are no funny pages
No, no.
anymore. So I guess the name it would have to be a period piece for sure.
Sure.
But nonetheless, it would be an interesting period because again, we're talking about this time frame of like where Letterman, Oscars,
Yep.
and then not to be really like bizarre with my bookends here, but like the 9/11 moments and stuff like that. In
Yep.
between there was this moment of like the innocence of the show was still there,
Yep.
and of late night was still there. The war was still going on with
Oh, absolutely.
Hey, it was heated still, but kind of coming off of that moment of where Late Show had just started and like how was Dave going to position himself? Was he going to mainstream himself
Hmm.
more? And he didn't. And I, for one, am very thankful as a lifelong fan that he did not.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. The analogy in I think it's in Late Shift that Dave is or that Jay is pop music and Dave is like Pink Floyd. For me that's the perfect analogy, and he stayed Pink Floyd. Yes, it went mainstream and there are folks who rail against it saying the late night show was the better. Okay, yeah, but the idea that what you guys did on Late Show was the 11:30 offering at the Tiffany Network is astounding to me because again, the Ukrainian Crouch. Like, I'm sorry, you're not seeing that. Like,
yeah.
you're not seeing bits like that. You're not seeing things. Alan Coulter, the announcer, like Alan Coulter, I wish I could do. One of the things with Rick, the reason the show started was because Alan Coulter passed away. And it's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? That guy would have done this show 15 times, and every single time he would have done this
Oh,
show something more fun and like And that was the 11:30 offering. And
Yeah.
it was crazy that that would be the offering for that time slot for that network at that time. Even though, yes, perhaps the late night show on NBC was a little bit more experimental and in your basement and whatnot. But then take that theme. You guys still infuse that theme into late show. Absolutely. I
Well,
love the way you articulated that.
well, I think, what people don't remember about that transition is, well, number one, it suffered from Dave having done so many years of late night. Same thing with Conan and the Tonight Show.
Yep.
It's hard to then sort of say, look, I'm completely fresh. I'm different now. And also you develop an edge the way that Conan has. And then if you betray that, people sniff that out. The lack of authenticity.
Yep.
I think some of the stuff, like, and I'm not bashing like Colbert, or I don't want to whatever,
No.
but I'm it's not my end of the business, but I still, like, I applaud people I bow to them for them to still be able to, that job is something that I just didn't have the you know the
You weren't wired for it long
uh,
term.
yeah, I just, like, you burn out quickly if you're not careful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Cheryl Zellickson, who is at the who's a music producer, like, person, she brought a lot of that great stuff to Colbert, and I think they've since been a lot more mainstream in their music choices and whatever, and that's fair. That's
Mm-hmm.
what they're entitled to, that stuff. Although Chris looked, I don't know that guy. That's all I'm gonna say about him. But I guess sometimes your resume is a little bigger than your actual. Anyway, but so, like a Morning Joe, maybe. Anyway, okay. I'm not finishing the sentences for a reason. But
Oh no,
anyway,
I get it. I get it. This is great.
but my
Messages
point is,
received.
but yeah, but my point is like, Dave was like, no, this is what got me here. This is what I am. This is what I do, and that's what he kind of stuck through.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I think that, like, it probably became harder well past my time, but it probably became harder to do it, and I think because CBS never, I don't think CBS has ever owned who they are until fairly recently.
Yep.
I feel like they were always sort of like trying to be a bunch of different things on different nights.
Yep.
Whereas NBC has, if you just look at the basic networks, the old foundational networks, because of SNL and because of the Tonight Show and because of
Mm-hmm.
Letterman,
Mm-hmm.
they were traditionally the cool kids, or
Yep.
the snark network, or the people
Yep.
that could get away with that.
Yep.
You take Dave onto as you said, the Tiffany network, and at the time, my God, they were just complete. I mean, Central Park West and
Yep.
these other shows they were trying to do, that they were just trying to be other different. It made no sense.
No.
And eventually they land on the CSIs and the other kind of thing. But even then, it was still kind of like you didn't know. I mean, CBS was known really for 60 Minutes and for the news end of it.
Yeah,
But then,
sure.
but then, even then the 60 Minutes has maintained its ratings, or whatever. But the news stuff has dived considerably in terms of ratings, in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
their level of notoriety with Cronkite, certainly, and stuff.
Yep.
So, and Dan Rather, I love Dan Rather, but it was a weird dude. I mean, like, it's not like you can have fun with Tom Brokaw, maybe
Yeah.
too much fun with Brian Williams,
Oh yeah.
too much, trying too hard, and then you have Dan Rather. He's doing like singing train songs and stuff. You're like,
What's the frequency, Kenneth? Yeah.
yeah, oh my God. Yeah. That was, if you're known for that more than you are being like, stopping putting an end to the Vietnam War like Cronkite, but
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
difference. So all those things, I think, made it a lot harder for those folks to maintain that edge. and to do things the way they used to be able to do it, and for Jay Leno to be so accepting of whatever it is that the PR folks wanted or whatever. And
Yep. He embraced pop music.
totally. I
He
mean,
embraced the pop of everything, and it wasn't
back
just
to your
music, of
music
course.
analogy. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
absolutely the truth of it all. And it's kind of a, again, as a fan, it's a bummer, but it's not, because that legacy. I mean, I don't like, but what is Jay Leno's legacy comparatively?
I think it's the monologue. I think he's a joke machine.
Yeah.
I think it's, he's going to go up and do, as many jokes as he possibly can and whatnot. Whereas again, the comedian versus the broadcaster, we go back, you talk about CBS's legacy for a second. I just want to, there are so many times that people are like, okay, so at the time, CBS lost the NFL. And oh, so what, they lost the NFL, why would they keep saying that is affecting, that was part of that identity, CB 60 Minutes, the NFL, Murder She Wrote, like these are the things that CBS is kind of known for. And suddenly a big chunk of it back then, and this is before the expanse of sports coverage and things like that, losing the NFL was a huge deal. And it threw CBS on the ropes. And you guys, at the end of the day, when Late Show started, and they weren't, from an affiliate standpoint, they shouldn't have gone to number one. They shouldn't have been able to do it. And that is the power of what was happening, the power of the interest and whatnot. For that first 18 months, the idea that CBS was number one in that time slot, it actually, it shouldn't have kind of happened logistically. It shouldn't have been able to happen, but it did. And then suddenly, party's over, lost the NFL, things are going down. And then we get to this phase that you're talking about. And these are your years, where the show was sort of trying to find itself, but it was also, there were elements where it did stick to its roots, but they replaced people who had been there for a long time. And so, when that happens, when you upset the apple cart, the apples are going to settle in different ways. Fascinating time for you to be there from a television history standpoint.
Oh my gosh. Then add, the Ed Sullivan Theater, and how does that play into it? And what are the lessons that could be learned from doing a show there versus what was done, the NBC studio lended itself to that haphazard craziness way better than Ed Sullivan Theater, which was just a more polished, amazing location and stuff. The other thing too is just to bring up also the Oscars, which I was thinking about this before this conversation, and I was like, I would almost compare that Oscars appearance to, like, I was thinking of like the Howard Dean scream. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
Okay, so
wait,
Howard
yes, of
Dean,
course, yes,
right.
yes, I do.
Right. So Howard Dean goes like, he's on a roll versus to be George Bush in competitor in 2004. He goes, we're gonna go and win, and he screams, and then suddenly it's everywhere, and people are like, "What? Did you hear him scream? It's crazy that he screamed like that." And now we look back on that compared to what we've been doing, what we've seen in the last few years in American politics. And I try to explain that to somebody who didn't live through it.
Doesn't compute. Yep.
And frankly, the same could be said for Letterman's Oscar appearance.
Absolutely.
And no one is allowed to succeed as the host of the Oscars anymore.
Yep.
No one's allowed to host anything and succeed anymore. There's just there are too many critics.
Yep.
And Ricky Gervais stands out as somebody who does the Emmys. I mean, honestly, I have trouble watching him because it's too much cringe.
Yeah.
But he's like
trying to are you talking about Ricky Gervais' Golden Globe? Ricky Gervais?
Golden Globes,
yeah. But he just didn't give a fuck to the point where he rose above it all and just does not care. Or at least that's the theme of what he's putting out there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I think that when Dave did the Oscars, it was this was I was just I'm going to talk about, my God, I was just coming into the Page program.
Holy smokes.
Just honestly, I'm like 2 weeks in. I had just gotten done reading The Late Shift, and I was
Yep.
like, I can't believe I'm involved in this. I cannot believe this is happening. This is my life. And
Oh
I'm
my
watching the
gosh.
Oscars, and I'm like, this was fantastic.
Yep.
And then the next day, like picking up a newspaper, because that's what you did back then,
Yep.
and you look at it and go, wait, that was bad?
Yeah.
I didn't
Oh, yeah.
I
Yep.
didn't know that. Just like Howard Dean, wait, what did he do? He's made a noise. I don't know. Who gives a damn?
Mm-hmm.
And now you see, not only are people not allowed to succeed, nobody ever does well doing those things, but they've also copied so much of what was done on that night, the type of jokes they did. Certainly, Billy Crystal then I think took Letterman's like preamble, like being in the movie kind of
Yep.
thing, and just a lot of stuff. So anyway, so it's just it's a weird. My other sort of 2 cents about the show and the legacy of it is, I think that they probably, after a certain point, probably wanted to do stuff a little bit more serious and like have those moments because he had it back in the day.
Yep.
I mean, you know, really intellectual Dick Cavett like bookings, and he was doing that stuff.
Yep.
And but there was a excuse me, there was like a talent booking war, and we got to get so and so on again, and you don't have time for that stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that at 11:30. There's a war that's being waged here, and so when you look back now and really like how are what's the monetary worth of these things is, man, there's all different answers to that, but I think one of them is like, what are what are the things that people will seek out on YouTube? What clips do they watch?
Yep.
I mean, I for one, when I'm having a bad day, I watch Don Rickles on anything,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, all right, that's good. But those things aside, or Bill Burr on Conan, or
Oh
Bill
yeah.
Hader, another, like there's so many great late night guests now still to this day, and certainly
Mine's
back
Norm Macdonald. I go back and I watch Norm
then. Oh
Macdonald on anything.
yeah,
I watch him on Letterman. I watch him on Conan. I watch him on Tom Green. I watch him. I just
yeah.
Norm Macdonald's my guy. One of the things that Conan got, the Tonight Show. One of the notes that he got, you're putting on Norm Macdonald too much. Are you kidding me? And that's one of the reasons why he lost the Tonight Show was things like that. Are you kidding me? So you're talking about these ahead of their time kind of moments where, uh,
Oh my
you
God.
know, yeah, yeah.
He's actually there's another one. I mean, look at that guy's legacy. It's the same thing. If he abides by what they had asked him to do, Don Ohlmeyer and the O.J.
Mm-hmm.
Simpson stuff and
Mm-hmm.
SNL, instead, the legacy he's created for himself. He is, I mean, at after his death, you could just start to feel it.
Oh yeah,
Now he's now like becoming like an Andy Kaufman.
he
He's
is.
right. He's an
Yep,
anti-establishment icon, and
absolutely.
and Dave is certainly that. Late shows didn't maintain it like as it's just it's impossible. But at the same time, like there's so much. It's such a difficult uphill battle to do all those things and to keep that going, and I think he did it as best as anybody possibly could in his situation. And my career now, working in TV,
Yep.
I so I develop TV shows. I develop stuff. I work for this great company called Migilla Entertainment,
Yep.
and we develop shows, nonfiction shows, unscripted reality, documentaries, true
Some good
crime.
stuff. Let's go down the list a little bit of some of the stuff that you've done. Like, let's not, you can be as, as humble as you want with it, but you've got some pretty cool stuff that you have been a part of.
Well, and Magilla does great shows for Discovery, and
Yep.
we have Moonshiners, we have
Yep.
Deep Brothers, and Long Island Medium has been a lot of great iconic programs, and we continue to try to do different programming that is there's the mainstream appeal, but then there's like this really cool substantive doc style thing we want to
It's
do.
interesting.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
what it is it's it, it's something that gets lost, especially on like younger YouTubers and other people is you still have to be entertaining. It
Yeah.
still has to be entertaining. It still has to have a little bit of the pop stuff. I mean, Pink Floyd is great, but if everything was The Wall or the Beast or the second side of the album, you'd be like, oh my God, I see.
Oh
Heroin's
no,
great.
the genius, the talent and the genius still has to be there. The alchemy again of interesting and entertaining and all that. Yeah, you have to have that.
Yeah. And so I think that that's something that show and something that style of when you put it through the filter, through Dave's filter
Yep.
of like, what does he want? What kind of jokes does he want to tell? What does he not want to do? Like that, as I mentioned, the stuffed dog in the Glen Coast close. He would not do that. I
Nope.
should not add that waiting for him. Like, if anything, I set him off, and my apologies, Miss Close, for her appearance in 1997. That's on my bad. But at the same, but again, Farrah Fawcett, that's on you. But anyway, but those kind of things, like that is what made him so real and so good. And you mentioned John Beckerman, like
Yeah.
the the writers that came through there, the guys who were so damn funny and who've
Hmm.
went on to do incredible.
Yep.
Um, while I was there, I was fortunate to have been around like John Beckerman,
Yep.
also a fellow Pittsburgher, which is awesome, and certainly Rob
Yep.
um, was great, always very nice to me and good guy, and Tim Long,
Yeah. I
who,
I desperately want to have fellow Canadian Tim
oh,
Long on here. I desperately want that.
that he would be such a such a great guest, and
Yep.
and I mean, talk about a legacy. The
Yep.
Simpsons, the stuff that he's done since
Yep.
then. Rodney
Absolutely.
Hoffman, Oscar winner.
Hmm.
He won the Oscar for the Spider Verse thing, and
Hmm.
super great guy.
Hmm.
Was like the little wonderkin. He was like the little Doogie Howser when I was there. It was because he was like, I think he was might have been 12 when after he like graduated Harvard.
Yep.
Um, but I say that, and he was probably like 2 years younger than me, and
Yeah. 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 But still,
but, uh,
just
but it
yep.
didn't matter because that's when
Just
age still was calculated that way when you're young and you're kind of my God, he's 22 and now he's like, I mean, he like shot up to be like a head writer and stuff, and then Craig and Carter
oh yeah.
and Craig.
They took McGee's and made a hit show out of it. Like it's so interesting.
Oh my God,
We're gonna
that
have
is
them. We're there. By the way, I just was. We're gonna have both of them on at the same time. That's gonna be a lot of fun having the two of them on here at the same time. That's an up. Probably in the fall we're gonna shoot that. But yeah,
and the Stengel
the
brothers,
Stengels, absolutely. Were you there when
and
Louis was there? Because again, you talk about a guy like Will, and then you talk about a guy like Louis. Like oh my God, Louis. Talk about prolific and whatnot, but at the
yeah.
same time, doesn't necessarily. You must have been there when Louis was there.
I was there. Not only was I there, and this is another weird name drop thing, but I was a researcher with Tom Ruprecht,
Yeah. Oh,
um,
Tommy, I
uh,
love that guy.
one of the best characters ever. Just a crazy like fun dude, and he was the head researcher, and he was so good to me at that time and stuff,
Yeah.
and um and Josh Weintraub, who I believe is still at Kimmel.
Is he at
Um,
Kimmel or Colbert or Kimmel? He's at
Kimmel.
Kimmel. Okay, yeah,
And Josh, and we were the time that I was there. So Louis C.K. was upstairs from us or something like that,
yeah,
and he would be hitting. We just kept hearing this thud on, and it was like, what is this noise? Like somebody keeps. So finally, like Ruprecht is getting so angry, and he goes upstairs, and he finds out that it was Louis C.K. was like, as he writes, he keeps holding a baseball bat and just keeps dropping it on the floor, and just kept like, like kind of thudding
Yep.
as thinking. This was his way of thinking, and it just kept going on. And then he didn't last like a cycle, and it was on his, I think something like that. It was
Yep.
not long, and I think it was his own doing. He was just like, I want to go off and do my own thing, and good for him, obviously. That
Sure.
worked
Yeah. No,
well.
no, no.
But I just remember that sort of like Tom coming back and being like, oh, Louis C.K. is here and whatever. And I don't even think he said it that way. I think about that now because like, Louis C.K. was not,
He wasn't Louis C.K.
eventually became.
Yeah.
It was just this, also kind of a wonderkin guy. And also when we were pages,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm saying like we're gonna have you set you up with like a bunch of my CBS page groups, because
Yep.
we did the Dana Carvey show.
Oh my God, that's fantastic! I
Yeah.
didn't know that the CBS pages did the really.
So now let me get into the page thing a little, because I think
Yeah.
researchers. I got as much, and I will. One other thing, shout out to Nick Brewer, who is
Yes.
one
I
of my
adore Nick Brewer and everything he does.
and also one of the best, if not the best, follows on social media. He is insane. I don't.
Yep.
I've never. There are people who like live their life like an art, like it's their art. Nick Brewer does that. It is some weird art. It's
The
like
magazine covers that he makes and puts in waiting rooms.
it's like his art is like those like the velvet painting that he would find at a thrift store.
Yep.
That's the art that he created for his life, and it's just the best follow in the world.
Yep.
But anyway, but those folks aside, so now I'm like, I go to college, doing my thing. I did a college TV show, comedy thing with two other guys. It felt very, I mean, you will look at it now and you're like, oh my God, you look like you're impersonating Letterman, because that's what we all did back then.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the college TV show. My then girlfriend like sent these things to ABC, CBS, having no idea what they were. CBS News, the woman who ran the intern program there, Jerry and Richie, she's like, calls me up and goes, honey, do you have any idea what we do here at CBS News? Why would you send me this thing? And I was like, I'm so sorry, ma'am. She's like busting my balls. And basically she goes, I'm busting your chops. Just come here. If you want a summer internship, come visit me in New York. I was like, I couldn't believe it. It actually paid off. So I get the internship at CBS News. I become a page by way of the guy who had the internship, who was a page before me.
Yep.
And the page program will always be the best job I'll ever have in my entire life.
Oh, I love hearing this. Yep.
Because you couldn't really screw it up. You have to try hard to screw this up.
Mm-hmm.
And you were part of a fraternity that was like best friends with the sorority.
Yeah.
Of people who all fancied themselves class clowns.
Yep.
Who all imitated Letterman, who did whatever, or some who were destined to be on actual TV, which we have a few of those in our alumni. And so I get this page job, and the brilliance, and I gotta say, when they switched it to just have full-time pages at Letterman, it was a major bummer for all of us, because
no more hopping from the different places at that point.
Yeah, and
yeah.
also you lose that connection that you could have had more of with the broadcast center.
Yeah,
I think Dave's relationship with CBS was just like, screw these guys, they're not helping me, and I went. And I don't know, maybe a mistake, I don't know, to whom I. But the broadcast center, for the folks, it's like 57th Street, West 57th. It's the hub of CBS News. and that's also where the Page program, the Page offices were.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the mornings, you worked at the broadcast center, and you worked for the various, it was maybe the events department or whatever, but primarily it was with news. So you would work at 60 Minutes, you would work at 48 Hours, which I did. I was at 48 Hours most of my time in the mornings. And then around 2 or 3 o'clock, you grab your late show or your CBS blazer and your gray pants, and your navy blazer with the CBS eye patch.
Yep.
And your ugly yellow tie, and you make your way over to the late show. We had lockers, we got in our outfits, and we went down and we did the show. But at the broadcast center in the mornings, the jobs were hysterical in retrospect, and some of the funniest stuff we had. We guys who, like I said, we had a guy who now is a weatherman in Miami.
Yeah.
Steve Villanueva, and a couple others who went on to be on camera. A lot of people still in news at Sunday morning, and a lot of those jobs. At 60 Minutes, you had, I mean, we had interaction with Andy Rooney, Mike Wallace. We had one guy, our friend John Bobby, was standing in the rotating doors, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to us or whatever. And Mike Wallace just was like, that guy didn't give a shit. He just was Mike Wallace, get out of my way. I'm Mike Wallace. And he literally pushed our friend into the double doors to get him moving, and then went on the other end and then kept moving. And my friend John's like, what just happened? And he looks back and it's Mike Wallace. The guy just like, and I was on the phone with him once. He's like, hey, get me so-and-so. And, and I'm like, can I say who's calling? He's like, it's Mike Wallace. Like,
Don't you recognize the voice?
Oh my God, yeah. And Andy Rooney, like we'd see him in the cafeteria called Station Break at the broadcast center, eating a ham sandwich. Amy Sharon, I'm sure, shared a lot of these great stories and stuff. And then as a Page, I don't know if she broke down the various positions.
Somewhat. She went more on the Letterman side. So no, this is great. I love hearing this side on the CBS side.
Good.
Yeah,
so,
this is great.
So that's where it was like the Station Break. It was hysterical. I mean, the place is called Station Break. Cafeteria. I don't even know if they still do stuff like that anymore. Like, because every place feels like a cafeteria at the food places in Manhattan. You just take your salad, put it in here, put it in this bucket, and get out of here.
Yep.
That back then it was way more like you'd sit down and have a meal, or you'd go to the deli and you'd order a corned beef sandwich. But Station Break was that before all those things. So we would eat there, and surrounded by posters of failed or failing CBS shows. And just talk about various like funny stories or whatever. But the coveted job certainly was Letterman.
Yeah.
Was could you get that job? Could you land that position? And then as I'm sure Amy might have said, it's like you have these various positions. You started at the bottom, literally.
Yep.
Bottom of the place, the D page, I want to say, because it was letters would signify your position. The D was the bathroom page. And it's a bathroom because that's where you basically just stood there in front of the control room, and when people would come down, and you'd say, "Oh yeah, men's room's here, women's room's there," and that's all you did. But Dave would run through as part of his show tradition, pre-show.
Yep.
He just kind of
He ran to get his energy up. He raised his vibration by literally physically raising his vibration, including running out onto the stage. But he had a preamble for that. Yeah.
And so that was like the excitement of. So every position had some level of interest or excitement. You had like the key page, you were in charge. That you had to build up to that, man.
Yeah.
Like you don't you gotta earn that key page position. Um, and then the backstage page though was arguably the most like coveted because it's where you literally would you bring the celebrities in. You'd end up like in the back end of like Us magazine, but
Yep.
when we had magazines,
Hold the
um,
door for someone.
yeah, like the cast of Friends, and you're just like, there's a picture, like you're just staring awkwardly into like some paparazzis, and you're like, dude, check it out. I'm in, Us. I'm in. My mom will get excited, at seeing me at the supermarket. So things like that were just super fun about, but it was just like it was such an amazing opportunity to ease my way into TV
Mm-hmm.
and to get comfortable with having this overwhelming number of celebrity and these other kind of people and in your life. And so at Letterman, then there was the speech page. I don't know, to Amy. So
Nope. What's the speech page?
that and that ultimately became, I would say, the key page is obviously in the backstage, but then the speech we would rotate. I think you'd do like for a full week, we would have somebody do it and then we'd switch off.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the speech that you have to memorize that you deliver to the audience before they go into the show.
Oh, yeah. That has evolved. Oh, yeah. Okay. So the early incarnation is very different than the end incarnation with the audience coordinators who would kind of indoctrinate different groups as they would come into the Ed Sullivan Theater. You were there when it was still CBS Pages doing it. Okay. Yes. The speech page. Yep.
Yes. And so, oh my God, I can't. I mean, I just remember the beginning was like, hey, everybody, welcome to the Late Show. And we all
So it
had
was
our
fully scripted. It was memorize
scripted.
this like it's lines in a play, and
Yes.
you're doing it. Yep.
But there were everybody was a wannabe comedian. So we all had our bits and we all had our things, and we would compare notes afterwards and be like,
This
"Oh
really
man,
worked. This worked here. Oh, this
yeah.
died here. Don't say that."
Oh, I'm no kidding. Like my buddy, the aforementioned Rohit, was the like phenomenal at it because he's like a super positive energy. Like Dave ended up flying him out to like different when they would do shows in Denver and other places like that. He would be flown
He
out.
was dialed in. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
They were
He could
just
transfer his energy onto others and all of
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
I know a little about that. I'm kind of that guy
yeah,
I'm kind of that guy in my friend group and in my
yes,
office. Yeah. Yep.
yes. That
Yep.
like things are not as much fun without you. Without
Oh, well, I wouldn't go that far with me,
oh
but
no,
with Rohan or with what's his name?
Rohit.
Rohit.
Uh,
With
yeah, yeah.
him, yeah. Yeah.
Oh no, he's just there's an energy about him of friendliness that is like it's infectious. Is
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my thing was just like they welcome to the Late Show. My name is Zoran Zgonc. Yes, that is my real name. Like dumb, really bad. Just so like, what is it? What is like sometimes that I get a sometimes they were just like, what is he saying? What? But the one time that I did, and oh my God, it was just this is so stupid, but it Letterman show 96, something like that.
Yep.
Not hurricane, excuse me, blizzard of
Yep.
New York City.
Yep.
Massive blizzard. And it really hit Midtown, and Midtown was unprepared.
Yep.
Late Show is like, are we going to do this? Yes, let's do the show. But that early afternoon, the pages are like, get out of your 60 minutes jobs, wherever you are, go help the Letterman audience coordinators to find an audience at the city. So we were grabbing people off the street and saying, hey, you want to come see the show? You want to come see Letterman? They're like, what? Really? Yeah. Come on. But in a blizzard.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
middle of a blizzard. So we're also like wrapped up. I mean, hey, what are you doing? And you could after a short period of time in New York, you can tell who's the tourist pretty quickly, and you just grab them, folks. So we grab them, and the weather is like it's the snow's on the ground. It's not as though we're like it's horrifying, like in your face snow, but line everybody up, and I happen to be the speech page that night, and I'm hyping this up way too much, or that day. Hyping this up too much, but basically, I think you'll appreciate the reference. Is I'm giving the speech, and this audience is so excited to be there. They are beyond, they can't even believe what's happening. Like they've all just won the lottery.
Yep.
And this guy makes some comment as I said something. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Steve Martin comedy albums back in the
Oh
day.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so it's like so cliched now, but the a heckler says something to him, and Steve Martin says, "Yeah, I remember my first beer," and the audience erupts with laughter. So I remembered that line.
Oh.
And I said it, and it got the biggest laugh. And I swear, it was like I was a late night king for a 5-second moment. And it was so wonderful. It was it's so stupid to bring that story up, but
No, it's not. This is the stuff we love.
but that's where you're living this vicarious thing through being forced to like essentially do almost like a stand-up bit.
Yep.
For your comedy idol.
Yes.
Get them excited to go to watch the show.
Yes.
I mean, that is beyond words. And also when you worked at these other places, you were answering the phone.
Sure.
You weren't really doing much of anything. There maybe an Excel sheet once in a blue moon. But even then they'd be like, you're fine, just go answer the phone. Stop. Don't touch anything technical. And so that was a wonderful experience, and everything, like to just sort of to have that entrance into it, and then from there on, like working as a researcher, it just was. It was an immense amount of pressure over time, and there was such an immense pressure on the show that was alleviated by them making certain moves and certain things, because Dave felt, I need more, I need my own people with the audience, or I need this or that. But as a researcher then, he hadn't done those things.
Yep.
And again, there was just this unnecessary pressure that we don't see as much now on late night hosts. Like you don't have to be the king of late night.
Yeah.
You're just a late night host. And by the way, the other thing too is all these people who go, we have all these late night shows. This is how TV originally started. Everyone had variety shows.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Jackie Gleason, Milton Berle, Jack Benny, whoever.
The first incarnation of the Tonight Show was a variety show. Absolutely. Like, yes.
So everything old is new again. And I mean, now we're even talking about doing more branded content. And so, the Sunoco hour is, just around the corner.
It's all coming back, and we've actually talked about this on this show as well too. How the old becomes new again, and it's all cyclical, and it all revolves around advertising. We had a guy by the name of George Schweitzer on early on, and he was the head of CBS marketing he was there for 5 decades. He was on for like literally 50 years, and how really at the end of the day, advertising is what drives TV. It always has driven TV, and the old becomes new again. This branded content you're talking about. I need to go back to something that you said about the page program. Then I want to get to researching for a second.
And I did forget about something else about the page program. Go ahead. No.
Okay. No. Okay. Put a pin in it. Can you put a pin in it? Okay. So what you just encapsulated why we're doing this show by talking about. You were so eloquent in talking about what it was like to do this speech and to kill in front of these people on behalf of your comedy icon. Like, you just encapsulate. See, the tagline for this show is we're a celebration of the greatest body of broadcast work in history, that of David Letterman and Company. And it's the company, like, because again, I don't think that there is a better broadcaster in the history of television than Dave, but then he surrounds himself with people who also believe that and want to do their very best to create uh the company around that. And it's and you just did a beautiful job talking about basically just taking the spirit of our tagline and putting it in that. So thank you for saying that. I just want to appreciate that. Let you know I appreciate that. Back when you were a researcher, the internet was there, but it's the infancy. We talked to Tommy about this.
Oh
We've
my
talked to other
God.
researchers, talked to Nick about it, that sort of thing. But being a researcher back then, and I wanted to ask you this question, because being a researcher back then, yes, it preps you to be a segment producer. It preps you for all sorts of things in television. And when you look at what you have moved on to now and where you're at now, I would bet every dollar in my pocket that a lot of the skills you still use every day today
Oh,
are
1,000%.
built back on being a researcher before the internet and having to think around corners and having to understand the different trajectories of every potential thing you put down on that piece of paper, never mind gathering which ones are going to be on the piece of paper, which ones stay off the piece of paper. I can only imagine that job back then, in the way that it was, prepped you for what you're doing today in television. So that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you today.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, well, first and foremost is being factually correct, because you're never gonna, I mean, I can do something now where I put together a pitch deck, or I'm putting together storylines for episode examples or whatever,
Yep.
and eventually that will come on the air, that people will then, have to say, okay, this was correct, or that was, it goes through legal, it goes through whatever. But you're talking about, like, talking to Nicole Kidman about her vacation, and did this monkey really bite her on the foot and whatever, and it's like, you better get that right. And back then there wasn't a Google. Oh my
Nope.
God.
Nope.
There wasn't a Google there, and Checky, the great Checky, like, what set us up. Like, he did some, like, um I think he made our, like, main pages at the time. I remember that would being like this dramatic moment where he was like, oh, the Drudge Report was like kind of the first, like, kind of aggregate place. Eventually, like, a Huffing Post and other places like that started to do it.
Yep.
But he set that up, and it was like, well, this is where a lot of you can, necessarily sourcing the magazines, because you still had interns going to the New York Library,
Yep.
and going to find stuff. Or, well, then still to this day, you're going to have researchers reading the books
The
that are being,
biographies and the
and
different things. Yep. Yep.
I actually realized, RFK Jr. is running for president right now.
Mm-hmm.
I read his book when he was on The Late Show, um,
Wow.
many, many moons ago. And oh my God, some of the other ones that I had to read for the show, like Sinbad. Uh, I,
I'm sure it was a great read.
it was a real page turner. God bless him, but he's a very funny, cute comedian. But, like, I don't know that a book needs to be written that involves a chapter where your mama slaps your butt off your body. And it was like a whole joke that went on for like 10 pages of, she'd hit me so bad my butt would, anyway, it was like stuff like that. That was like, Gary Marshall was on the
Oh,
show.
wow. Yeah.
His
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah.
I still have that book, Wake Me When It's Funny. That was a great book
Was
because
that
it
when
was,
he was promoting Exit to Eden?
might have been.
I think it was. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, he was hyping that film up like crazy because that. Oh yeah. Anyway, yeah. So you read Gary Marshall's book?
No,
Sorry.
but his, like, that was, for me, that was like, candy. Those was just like every inch of that,
Yep.
Happy Days and all this kind of legendary stuff and everything. But yeah, like, that is an amazing experience of, and again, it's funny because it's like, going from the page program where it was just like, whatever, these people love me. I can just, to being like, oh my God, I got to get that information exactly right. Or, where can I find this old commercial? And some of those things. So I use all that stuff today. I use never get a celebrity's name, the spelling misspelled.
Yep.
I'll look through that stuff, and when I work with young people now, I'm just saying, like, you have to get these things correct. You just can't. This is, no one else is going to do this work for you, and you can't just assume that, well, someone else can go and do the research or whatever. Because it almost feels that way. You could anybody. I don't want to say it's still very hard. In fact, it's probably harder now to do a research job because there are so many more shows. There are so many more podcasts. Where are you going to find that original story?
Yeah.
Where are you going to find that original piece of old footage or that thing that's going to make it feel different and make it feel new? And I can't even mind that boggles my mind to even think like what you could possibly do. I think I seem to remember people recording Leno and Conan, and we would watch those segments if those guests had appeared on those shows just before. We would watch them or whatever.
So you could do something different.
Yeah. So to avoid doing anything the same, but yeah, that's an amazing thing. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. Sorry though, about the page program. I have no good segue into this.
That's okay.
You want to flip? That's
we don't need them. No. We don't need them.
Okay, all right. But I meant to say one additional part of the page program. It was not just working on Letterman as far as the shows go, but also some other TV shows that we worked on that were at the broadcast center. And the broadcast center wasn't just offices. There were massive TV studios there.
Yep.
So you weren't just doing the green screen, tick, 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 60 minutes thing. As the World Turns was there. Maybe not Guiding Light. I think that was in LA. I think As the World Turns maybe was the only
soap opera.
But you go in and there's like, there's the doctor's office and there's the whatever, an old school 3-camera shoot TV going on. So phenomenal. And also understandable why, those shows don't exist as much or if at all anymore, because they were ridiculously expensive to make.
A lot of real estate.
And so, and union and whatever and all that stuff. But we did. There was the age of daytime talk shows. So Geraldo was there. And man,
that's craziness there. There's an episode right there, by the way. We could do an entire episode on that very easily.
And the people that went to Geraldo, there was like 3 or 4 people that went to every episode of Geraldo.
Wow.
But people can remember, the other pages will remember this better than me, they were some
interesting people.
Imagine, the type of people you'd be like, I bet you've gone to every episode of the daytime talk show of Geraldo. You strike me. Either that or you're a serial killer. One of the two. And then, there are those folks, and there was the other daytime Charles Perez. But then we did Chris Rock's show, the HBO show.
Oh wow!
Out of the broadcast center, that show
was that show was
brilliant.
Fire. That show was awesome.
Brilliant stuff. And then speaking of brilliant, was the Dana Carvey show.
There we go.
Politically Incorrect. That was the other one.
Oh wow!
Hallmark Politically Incorrect show. Yes. And that was pretty interesting to be working on that. Again, just as a page, but still just to kind of see how those shows unravel. Dana Carvey thing was unbelievable.
Speaking of branded TV, the Mountain Dew Dana Carvey show.
Yes.
That was genius.
Yes. And also you gotta also figure it's like So Dana Carvey passes on doing late night, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was offered Conan's. He's like,
Yep.
whoever does this is never gonna make it in TV. Props massively to Conan.
Definitely.
Unbelievable. Like that alone is one of the most incredible achievements in TV history and entertainment
Yep.
history.
Absolutely.
Able to, especially when we all looked at that guy, and you would talk about broadcasters.
Yep.
You had to have TV chops. Dave had that as a weatherman or whatever. You had to have a certain look. You had to be from the Midwest.
Yep.
You had to have a certain name. You had to have a look, let alone this like red haired, like freakish, tall,
Yep.
Irish dude from Boston. Like we were all, and the laugh, we were just like, what is
Yep.
this?
Yep.
This guy's never like we all hated him.
Yep.
And now I actively seek out his old shows, and his podcast is one of the best things that exists.
Could not agree more.
Anyway, but so you have so at that time, the Dana Carvey thing, like that show, we all, as pages, we all had front row seats to that thing because the audience wasn't that big. It was like 250, I don't know, whatever it was. It was not that big of an audience.
Yeah.
He kind of just brought them in and just babysat these people. And that was it. And we would sit there and we would watch Louis C.K., who still had all his hair, still whatever. It was like 20, talk about like kind of orange haired freakish guy.
Yeah.
Super young. Like,
yep.
Who is this dude? He looked like one of us, and age wise and everything. Same with the other ones, Colbert, Steve Carell. I swear to you, I remember watching Steve Carell just yelling a lot, and I remember saying to myself, like, I'm not even making this. I was being like, this dude is never going to make it. And he's not funny at all. Colbert, I was just like, I don't know. What's the big deal? Like,
yeah,
it's just they're just there.
Yeah,
and also just you put everybody through not just the Letterman lens, but also the SNL lens.
Definitely,
you could see him and go like, oh, he's glasses. Like, can't think of any SNL person who ever had glasses. Stupid stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well,
and it was an apt comparison because Carvey's coming off as one of the greatest SNL players of all time. His class resurrected SNL and then put it squarely back into the pop culture everything, and he was one of the leaders of that, and comes over. So of course, like I remember I was, as a viewer, that was my class at Saturday Night Live, and as a viewer I remember watching the Dana Carvey show, and I would compare it to Saturday Night Live. You couldn't not do it at the time.
Yeah, you couldn't. And if I remember correctly, I think SNL was kind of going through a little bit of a shaky time too, right before Will Ferrell and everybody had broken out into being the superstars that they became.
Yeah, they were reset. They had literally reset. They were retooling it. Yeah.
Right. That's right. They were kind of resetting at the time. And then we're all sitting here watching it. And again, we're just all like fancying ourselves like, we could do this.
Aficionados and
I just got to laugh, sending somebody over to the bathroom earlier. And I killed in the bathroom page today, let alone watching these guys do this stuff. And then Dana Carvey's like, does this skit, and there's that great doc on Hulu, which you've seen the one about the show.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Something canceled or whatever. But they talked about that one skit where Dana Carvey plays Bill Clinton, and he's milking puppies or something like that. Or no, not milking. Oh God, that's not. No. The puppies are taking milk from his various nipples or something, and I don't even know how to clean that up or even make it sound like if you
it's you're being accurate there.
Right.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
Look it up.
And I remember the audience and all of us just being like, what is this shit?
How do we take this?
what is happening here?
Yeah.
And then, I know again, I'm not trying to make myself like a Zelig or something like that, but I
No.
remember just like walking down and as we were escorting people out, like Louis C.K. came out and he like walked over to me very nervously. And he was like looking at no one and everyone at the same time. And he was like, well, that was pretty cool, right? That was funny. And I was like, yeah. And I didn't know what else to say. So I was like, dude, I don't know what you're doing, but this is so weird. So maybe, and I don't know, but maybe that's an example of like taking the edge too far,
Yeah.
doing whatever. But I guess in terms of legacy and stuff, man, you know, no one's, there are a lot of shows that no one's done documentaries about. Many, 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 let alone you got to be that one. And certainly we were all proven wrong by the supporting cast.
The writers, the cast, everybody, essentially, it just blew up after that. Yep, yeah, it's an amazing point in television history when projects like that happen, and they are just sort of a one-off, but then there are offshoots from it, and there are so many from that particular show. Again, this is why we do the Letterman podcast, because of how many offshoots there are. We don't see a Nick Pruer if it wasn't for his time in the recesses in the terrarium, or the subterranean catacombs that was the research department of Late Show. We don't see that. These things are made there, and that show, I think, did a good job of making
Oh,
giving the experience to some of these players that you're talking about, that would then propel them and give them the instinct as they hone in on whatever it is, Daily Show or their stand-up
well,
career or whatever it is
that's
after
right.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
Matt on the researchers, Madeline Smithberg. I mean,
Oh, Madeline. I
uh,
adore Madeline. She's coming on the
Daniel,
show. She and I go back and forth all the time, and
oh,
she is coming on the show. She's just got some stuff she's dealing with right now, but
yeah.
Madeline Smithberg is just,
I never
I
worked
look
with
up to
her.
her. She is one of these people that I just look up to as a trendsetter, and oh my God, I love her.
Yeah, I never worked with her. I just like, and Daniel Kellison
Yep.
and I'm forgetting, my goodness, who also was a EP on Ellen for many years.
Oh,
Woman,
Mary.
Mary, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah. So these people like, and it's funny because we used to just, everything was paper. So you'd get the folder of whoever the guest was. Certainly, if they hadn't been on since late night,
Mm-hmm.
go through the old folders and like, oh, well, here's some research, something that wasn't done before, and the names at the top of it, Madeline Smithberg, who was just like kind of getting the Daily. No, no,
Yeah.
the Daily Show was maybe
Yeah. Well, okay. Was it before?
started then. I can't
Because
even
she
remember.
was there with Kilborn.
She was there with Kill. Wait,
Yep.
she started. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
remember if that was even happening at the time.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
But
Yeah.
maybe it was just before that. But
Or The View with
all
Brian
that.
Teta. Like
Oh my God.
all
Yeah.
these crazy. Yeah. This is the reason why we do this show, is to
Yeah.
celebrate all that stuff.
It's almost
Go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say it's almost like if you like when NFL and you watch these coaches, they have their coaching trees and stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
think like, and Bill Parcells or somebody like that has all these various defensive coordinators, and all these people eventually go on to do these things. That's the late night people, and that's that kind of thing. And then I will just say though that it's like it's humbling. It's
Mm.
beyond humbling. And at that Friars Club farewell thing, I just, the whole night, I just, you couldn't pinch me enough to just be like, what, I can't even believe that I was part of this, even for
Yeah.
just a very short period of time. Because also so much time had gone away from that,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And so and I have to say it's a very brief window for my career and my time, but it is a very it was a very interesting time for the show. So I'm glad, if anything, I can share these stories to sort of like chronicle that moment, those moments, because it was a weird, interesting time.
Zoran, and Zoran, I'm insisting here, as your new fast friend, we're doing it again. We're gonna do it again. Like you and I will do this again because we have literally only scratched the very tip of the surface of what you have. I want to get to the things that you have thought about and prepared and whatnot. I want to eat to the show and tell and all that. If we have a few more minutes to do that, I appreciate it. But before we hit record, you were about to tell me a story about Shecky, and you used the reference of a Jedi, which I'm a big fan of Shecky. He's one of my favorite, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So that was amazing. You hearing that? Let's give Shecky a little bit of love, and
Yeah.
let's talk about the other things that you prepared,
You
and
know,
then
I've actually showed and told
the
everything.
pencil. Okay, good. Okay,
You
right
saw the
on.
dog too, so
Yep.
we're all good there. There's actually a phenomenal picture of Jerry Lewis. I'll save that maybe for next time because that's
Okay.
like
Okay.
that's a goodie. But I should my wife will kill me if I don't mosey on out of this. But I will
Yeah.
just I'd love to close for now on the folks at the show and the
Oh,
biggest
please.
lesson. If we now I'm starting to be like, if we could just dim the lights here for a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm doing my Sinatra like whole showbiz thing here. But honestly, like the biggest lesson that I learned was from a number of people at that show was that no matter how stressful things get, no matter how big your position gets, or how much of a part of like iconic role you've played in TV, kindness and the generosity that people showed me there is a lesson that I've tried to take everywhere I've gone as a professional. Is definitely the most important lesson that I learned, that there's always time for that.
Mm.
Shecky, I say that he was like a Jedi of that show, in a sense that he was there. He was like a, he did his work, he did all his stuff, but he was a quiet, calming presence. He just kind of
Mhm.
chilled. I mean, he should have been wearing the Jedi robe, just occasionally just lift the, be like, here's a video of a monkey washing a cat. Use it in good health. No. And you're like, amazing. I'd completely forgot about the monkey washing the cat. Let's use that. And that was, but that jokiness aside,
Mhm.
his vast knowledge,
Yeah.
his love and appreciation for all things TV and show business. Later on in years, being friends with him on Facebook, and just how much he did to preserve
Yes.
silent film, any type of the stuff that was. As I get older, my references get as old as me,
Hmm.
and I don't want to be shy about that because I want people to always remember that these things, and that's what's so great about the show that you do, and kudos to you for doing it, because these things should be not just appreciated and funny, but they should also be like kind of remembered and preserved. And why not do
Yeah.
it? Because of all that stuff, but also like, yes, Shecky, but then also Jerry Mulligan.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's so
just
great.
also he was the guy who I knew when I was a kid watching him sitting
Yeah.
next to Chris Elliott. And he always was in Chris Elliott's bits, and he barely ever spoke, or he just like he'd be wearing like he dressed like a woman with his beard, just kind of staring, like kind of lifelessly staring over. And then Dave would ask him a question, and he just whip snap, tell a hilarious joke,
Yep.
and I was just like, and then I got to meet him,
Yeah.
and he couldn't have been nicer and cooler to me. Um, and then high energy people like Joanna Jordan,
Hmm.
but still just again very super kind, and um, just so many different people there that did that. And and I don't know, like that to me is the lesson, the most impressive. Oh, and Barbara Gaines, my
Yeah.
God, and when Dave would yell, Barbara, what do you want? Like, is that, and then of course, like we're going down this road, I cannot not mention Jerry Foley,
Oh,
just
yeah.
recently passed also,
Mm-hmm.
who always had kind words. Jerry, when he saw me, he would always say Zoran Zgonc, like he butchered my last name, and I'd be Jerry. It's Zgonc, but it's fine, whatever. We had like our little routine. He had his brother, who's a famous director and did amazing stuff. My brother went on to do, like, famous in Pittsburgh for sports writing. We would always joke stories about our older brothers who were just way too in their heads and weird, successful guys.
Yeah.
And then when Jerry passed, on the Facebook stuff, I noticed that, not surprisingly, everybody had a little something with Jerry.
Yeah.
They had their because he took the time, despite being the director of the show, despite being under easily the most pressure of anyone.
Yeah, his job, and then replacing Hal, like just stupid pressure. Yeah.
Talk
Yeah.
about like
Yeah.
an accomplishment, replacing that guy and sticking with it, but still every day taking the time to make other people feel special.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I just say that that is the lesson, the best lesson of it all. And Paul also.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, always been super cool. His office was next door to Chris Shakai, his
Oh,
assistant.
isn't Chris great?
Just unbelievably good dude. And I think that they prided themselves, the show definitely prided themselves on hiring people like that and keeping them in the mix. But there's only just so much you can do when it's
Mm-hmm.
the pressures and the stuff is that high. And anyway, I'm just very grateful. Oh my God, I'm leaving other people out, like I'm like accepting an award here or something, but like
No. This is beautiful.
Nancy Agostini, Walter Kim,
Yeah.
and so many other, just like there's so many people, and that's the thing that I love to have been a part of that, and everything. So thanks for even giving me the opportunity to just say that, to
Oh,
any of them have a chance to hear that.
you have at any time, and many of them will. Many of them will. Many of the people that
Right.
you mentioned who've either been on the show or well, they all know about it, but many of them listen or watch. So I appreciate that very, very, very much. And it's so funny because have been many people who have been on the show who won't name names for the exact reason that you just said, because they don't want to forget anybody.
Yeah.
And it's funny having Janice on here. Janice, tell me some of the interns that you brought on that you've, and she's like, I won't do it. No, I will not. There's no way, because they were all like her kids. She loved them all, and she didn't
Oh,
want, in a second, she didn't want to exclude anybody. And it's like, well, no, we can talk about the other ones later.
and
But I
and
appreciate that so much.
thank you for bringing her up, because that's the reason I work there. And Janice was like, "Hey, Son, what are you doing? What are you doing? You want to work here? What do you want to do? You want to work here? Let's go." It was just like this great New York,
I know.
like,
Oh, I love her
just
voice. I love her voice so much.
she is such a Janice.
Yeah.
Sometimes a name and a person fit so beautifully, and
Oh,
there's a
that's a great quote.
dictionary. If Janice is in the dictionary, her picture is there, as Larry King used to say.
Um, this has been a lot of fun, and I appreciate it very, very, very much, Zoran. And I'm going to be in contact more moving forward and whatnot. And again, anybody that you think that should come on here to be able to do exactly what you just did here. We want to be an archive for that. It's funny how I don't think I'm being egocentric by saying this. I love that this show is a resource for people in your fraternity who are part of the Letterman mythos, can come here and get this stuff out. Like it's I've been told that so many times, and you want to talk about it's the same thing. Like I can't believe that I get to be involved in helping these people do that. Are you kidding me? What an amazing thing that is. So I just want to say thank you so much for your contribution, for everything. I appreciate this very, very much. And I hope that when you did your Ukrainian Crouch, your mom was very, very excited and proud when that happened.
Oh my God. Oh my God. It wouldn't have made the VHS tape if it wasn't. Yeah.
Let's offline, let's see if we can find some of those appearances that we have, because there are
Yes.
digitized. Let's see if we can get those sent to you here. I'll see if we can get Walter or Don to give the green light for that and make that happen for you. Zoran, I can't thank you enough for taking time today to do this. I
Oh, my
really
pleasure.
appreciate it. I can't wait to see what it evolves into.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, and thanks for doing this show. It's fantastic.
No problem at all. Oh, hey, you know what? I'll do the outro with you on here real quick in case you want to jump in. If you want to jump in, you can. Okay, so this is why we do the show. I love this so much, talking about the little corners, the little nooks and crannies that have to do with the Letterman universe. The Letterman podcast has one sponsor and one sponsor only. That is hello-deli.com. Rupert may not own the deli anymore, but he does own hello-deli.com. And guess what? He also has the rights to sell, the only person that has the rights to sell official Late Show with David Letterman merchandise. If you want hats and shirts and mugs and all that sort of stuff, go to hello-deli.com. And Rupert may not pack the order with onions anymore, but he will still pack the order and send it to you anytime. And he thanks you very, very much. And we thank hello-deli.com for being our sponsor. So any Rupert stories to take us out of here?
I asked if I could have a sandwich named after me, and he did name a sandwich after me for like a week.
No kidding.
And I was a little crestfallen but he was just like, I'm sorry, Zoran. I just, I had to get somebody else up there, and people are asking me, and I was like, Rupert, I couldn't thank you so much. Like, so I will always have that for the rest of my life. I don't remember what the sandwich was. I don't remember particularly enjoying it too much. With that, he made great sandwiches, but I don't like peppers. I get a little verklempt. So anyway.
This has been another episode of the Letterman Podcast with Mike Chisholm. Coincidentally, I am Mike Chisholm. Thank you and good night.
Overcoat and underpants.